Welcome everybody. My name is James Whittick. I'm doing the webinar on SATUGRAN, the launch of our granular wetting agent. While we're waiting for people to join, I'll just do a few introductions and a bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded, so you can watch it at a later date. And also there's a slide deck, which I'm going to be showing you. And you'll get that automatically as well at the end. In the chat room, please indulge in the chat room and the question and answer area so that you can ask questions along the way. In the chat room, I've got Simon Gillette, and one of our main sales staff and managers, and he is in there, will be answering your questions. So it's really, really good to see so many people have joined us. We've got people from around the world, actually, across Europe and further afield. And it's really interesting to see there are people joining us who I've never spoken to before, who are quite recent customers. But also we have people who I would treat as friends, who I've been dealing with for 10, 15, 20 years, are also joining us as well. So welcome to you all. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope this will be interesting for you. So what I'll do now is I will start the slide deck and we'll go through a presentation. The bulk of this webinar will be this slide deck presentation. Switch off my cameras because that's not necessarily what you want to see. So let's talk about SATUGRAN. It's our new granular wetting agent. It's new to many people because we're launching it now, but we have been developing this over the last 2 years and selling it to a set number of people over those last 2 years as well. So what I'm going to talk today is I'm going to do some introductions about GreenBest for those of you who are new to us. Talk about granular wetting agents, what are they, where they come from. Talk specifically about SATUGRAN, and then just finishing off with where you can buy it and a little bit about the product itself and the source of the product. So let's crack into introductions. First of all, I'll just run a poll as I'm doing the introductions, if I may. Just a very quick poll, just to find out what you're doing about granular wetting agents in your life at the moment, whether you're a user of them or whether you are a distributor of them. If you could just fill in that poll and we can publish the results. That's great. While people are filling that in, fairly equal at the moment. That's great. Okay, let's end the poll. I hope you can see the results of the poll. I'm a little cautious whether you can or not, but I'll work my way through them. So 50% of people who've logged on currently use or sell a liquid wetting agent, and they're considering a granular one. 25% who have logged in and currently do not use or sell a wetter at all, but are considering a granular wetting agent. And finally, a quarter of everybody, another 25%, interested in comparing SATUGRAN, which is our granular wetting agent, with other granular wetting agents. So back to the slide deck. GreenBest, let me introduce you to GreenBest. For those of you, most of you know who we are, but very quickly, who are we? GreenBest has a bespoke range of fertilizer offering where we will manufacture what you need, whatever type of fertilizer it is, in your brand, in your ratios. We also have a branded range of Smart Lawn. A lot of you know that go into the Smart Lawn professional Smart Lawn industry. And we have the Velvet range. And the Velvet range is a branded range of fertilizers, a short range of sports turf fertilizers, in which you can find all you need if you are supplying the sports turf industry as a distributor. And then recently we introduced the most recent range, the Florifeed range, and this is aimed directly at the ornamental horticulture fertilizer industry, commercial growing in greenhouses. But who am I? So I'm James Whittick. Some of you know me well. A sales and marketing director here at GreenBest. Been here 22 years. And I manage the distributor accounts in the UK, Europe, and the Middle East. And I've got a great team of another 5 sales staff who also manage accounts across those areas and further afield in Australia and Malaysia. So that's the quick introductions over. Let's talk about the granular wetting agents themselves. So wetting agents per se, not the granular ones, but per se, used in amenity turf. Most of you will know this in great detail, but let's bring everyone up to speed for combating such things as dry patch. And these are areas where the soil is hydrophobic and is resisting water movement through the soil. And without water in the soil, you get problems with your turf, and the turf cannot cope. And you can see the typical brown patches. Very typical reason why people are using wetting agents, of course. But also in a general aid in the summer soil water management across all of these high value areas, whether it's bowling greens or golf greens or fairways or pitches. And it's an aid right across the pitches and right across the areas just to manage your water better and make sure it's getting through the soil to where you want it, and make sure your soil type can cope with the irrigation and the rain that it's getting. And it makes better use of that irrigation. There is quite a lot of wasted irrigation around the world, but if you can make better use of the irrigation to actually percolate to the areas you need, that's what we're trying to do, and it saves you pound notes. And here we are. Here's a range of wetting agents. They're all the liquids. They're the Resolute, Best Wet, Horizon, and Yucca that we have in our ranges, typically all housed under the Velvet brand. So wetting agents as liquids have been around for a very long time. But what about granular wetting agents? We're often asked for granular wetting agents, and the normal reason is they want to fit it in with a particular application equipment or a skill set, i.e. they probably may not even have a sprayer and they want to use a spreader instead, and having to convert to a sprayer just to put on a wetting agent where everything else they're putting on is a granular product, and there's an obvious need for a granular wetting agent. Or a skill set, you know, it takes some skill to get a really even application of a liquid product, whether it's a fertilizer or a wetting agent, and so maybe the skill set isn't there all the time. And that's why we typically get asked for granular wetting agents. They're not a new thing, actually. They've been around for at least 15 years, if not longer, I'm sure. I remember way back then, there were products coming in from America and other places around the world being manufactured as granular wetting agents. Some of those were made with impregnated paper pulp. And this is, as you can imagine, tiny little pellet of paper pulp that has been supercharged with a liquid wetting agent. And the idea is the paper pulp is hopefully designed to degrade in the turf and settle into the ground and degrade like any other organic matter. And some of them are impregnated into other absorptive materials. And they have to be very absorptive to do this. And the typical one that is used is zeolite, a highly absorptive product. And that's the one we use for SATUGRAN. So it's a real challenge to make a granular wetting agent. It's the holy grail, of course. You need it small. You need it small so it can settle into the turf. And you also need it small because you want a lot of little granules over the area to do a good job. If you had 1 or 2 large granules, you're going to get very ununiform application of your wetting agent. You actually need the small granule, so you've got many small granules instead of a few big ones. You need it clean because you don't want a dusty product full of other bits and pieces that, you know, the customer is going to reject and say, there's dust in my face as I'm spreading it. You need it robust. And that's because when you actually manufacture it, you actually want it to break down eventually, but you also need it robust enough so when it's flicked by a spreader, you're not exploding into dust, or as the product is packed and moving on lorries, it doesn't grate and start to degrade. And you need it uniform, so you've got a beautiful product to spread on your high value areas, whether it's a golf green or a bowling green, the areas where you spend a lot of money. And you need it stable, as I said, because the last thing you want is sitting in your shed and a year later, it's not a product that can be spread. So it's quite a challenge to make a product to do this because it's going on these high value, short mown areas in the golf greens and bowling greens. And that is the challenge. much greater challenge to some degree than making a fertilizer do the same job. So the carrier or granule matrix, and we're using zeolite, must disappear into the sward. It must become part of the whole. The last thing you want is that hanging around and being seen for a long time. And you've also got to load enough active wetting agent into the product so that the material has a realistic application rate. And this is really, really key and something I want you to take on board. There are other granular wetting agents out in the industry, some good, some not so good. And you've got to be careful. You can make a product. There are no restrictions in making granular wetting agents. If I sell you an NPK, then the NPK defines the analysis. When someone's making a wetting agent, there are no definitions of how much it's carrying and how much it's applying. So someone could ostensibly make a really weakly charged granular product and selling it as a wetting agent. But to make a good one, you've got to know how much wetting agent's gone into it, how effective it is over a certain area. And you've got to be putting on a realistic application rate of the whole product at the end of the day. So you've got to get enough loaded onto the product. And you've got to be cost conscious when we're manufacturing and designing these things, because there's no point us coming up with a product that is way over a price point that anyone can pay for or realistically use on even on the highest value areas. So granular wetting agent development at Greenbest. We haven't just started yesterday. This concept development and costing was the first method, the first step in the journey. We then have a laboratory here in which we test production and testing of the products, both how they perform, but also how to make them. Then we go out to field trials, both for ourselves, out on grass areas for our own purposes, but also to our customers. And the final stage is to supply and our customers use it in the field areas and to get the customer feedback. And that's taken a journey of 28 months. So we actually have been selling SATUGRAN to some extent over those 28 months to the customers who have been trialing and testing and using it with most fantastic feedback. So that's the journey we've been on. So that's a little bit about the granular wetting agents per se, but let's talk about SATUGRAN itself. So SATUGRAN, the brand name of our granular wetting agent, mini grade wetting agent. We have it on our website already. That's the screenshot on the right-hand side. It's on our website. You can see details there. On the left-hand side, you have a technical data sheet giving you more information about application rates and more about it. So it's up and running. It's ready to go. It's there for sale. It's a 1 millimeter zeolite or thereabouts. There's a bandwidth of granule size that we've chosen, and it's got a very high cation exchange capacity. There are products with zeolites with fairly low cation exchange capacities, and the important aspect for us, but also for you, is that we've chosen a really high cation exchange capacity item. The importance of that is twofold. One, we are getting the maximum amount of wetting agent onto the product and in the product and absorbed to the product, but also you're getting a product that is also conferring cation exchange capacity value to your golf green or bowling green, and a not insignificant amount either, because the application rates we're talking about here, 200 kilos a hectare, 250, 300, I'll come on to that in a minute, you're actually putting on some good extra cation exchange capacity. And what we've done is obviously loaded it with a very powerful penetrative wetting agent. It's a penetrative wetting agent that we've been selling and marketing for a long time. We know it well. It's a fantastic product. We're only currently offering the 1 millimeter, and we probably always will. And it's about what I said earlier in terms of you need a lot of little granules spread over your square meter rather than one or two large granules spread over the square meter in terms of getting a really good coverage of the wetting agent. When you're spreading a liquid, you're getting a beautiful coverage over your square meter. When you're spreading a granule, you're getting those singular granular placements. So choosing the 1 millimeter and keeping it really fine, allows you to go for the high value areas and the golf greens and bowling greens, but also it gives you that very even distribution. The application Of course, it's got to go through a conventional spreader, whether it's a pushed along one, whether it's a tractor mounted one. That's the goal here, is to handle it in exactly the same way as a fertilizer, and it does. Application rates we have managed to achieve by loading this with the correct amount of wetting agent, and that's key. You'll still see similar application rates for some other wetting agents, granular wetting agent out there, but the key is, have they got enough liquid wetting agent to do the job in that application level? Why have we got a bandwidth? Well, 300 kilos a hectare is what we would like to set as a maximum. There are maximums set in the wetting application industry. You've got to be cautious about over application. Repetitive application is the way to apply more rather than going high in one go. So we're applying 300 kilos a hectare as a maximum, and we have a minimum of 200 kilos a hectare, below which, well, A, you're getting down to an application rate which is difficult to apply with an even coverage, and B, you're getting down to a level where you're not applying that much liquid wetting agent anyway. So the programs that and the trials we've done and the programs we've designed fall within those two bandwidths, or that bandwidth. And the timing, be careful not to mention months here, because we have people joining us and people using this around the world. We've sold huge amounts of this into the Middle East as an example. So I can't really name months as to when you should be applying, unless we're talking specifically about the country you're in right now. So when you typically have a strong seasonal environment, you'd be using it like you would a liquid wetting agent as you're going into the drier period, and you would be using it as a program throughout the drier period. Or if you haven't managed to get on early, you would be just starting within the drier period. So what we're typically talking about in the UK, of course, would be the summer months, would be an early summer application to get you started, to get the prophylactic product down on the ground before the problems happen, and then a program across the summer. So programs are the ideal way to do it, just as with liquids. So you'll see programs with all wetting agent liquids, or often see programs with wetting agent liquids, certainly will with ours. And so you can design programs, and this is a cut and paste from the SATUGRAN application rate, of things like 90-day programs would be the most typical across the 3 months of the summer. But there are shorter options, of course, available. So you've got some typical application rates there, say start off at 250 kilos a hectare for the 90-day program, and then follow-up applications of 200 kilos a hectare to give a really good, even prophylactic problem-solving application going through a dry summer. Longevity, not necessarily something you talk about always with wetting agents, but what we have found is anecdotal evidence that SATUGRAN has greater longevity of action than a liquid program or a liquid application. We're investigating this right now, and it'll take the rest of this year to get some real hard detail and facts on this. And like I said, we're testing throughout this year with the SGRI and with ourselves to get the answers to this. But potentially the idea might be that you're applying a granular, the wetting agent has something it's living in, and that's the cation exchange capacity of the granular zeolite, and therefore potentially maybe it might be being released on a slower basis, and of course when you just apply a liquid on its own. So potentially that could be what's happening here, but we're investigating as we speak. So we do have some background evidence that this might be happening, and it's exciting because it can help develop the programs and when you apply things to understand that longevity of result. So we got labels established for SATUGRAN. You'll see a typical one on the left, and that will be adapted with more detail quite soon. As I said, it's on the website. There's a screenshot in the center. This product, SATUGRAN, is a branded product, and it sits within the Velvet range. It's available to you whether you're a Velvet distributor. It's available to you whether you're a lawn care operative and you are currently using the Smart Lawn range. It's available to all. But it's a branded, stocked item in the Velvet range. Very important to be doing that because we need to be able to stock this item on the shelf, and we need to be able to pre-manufacture this product. We get some frequently asked questions around SATUGRAN, but also just generally around granular wetting agents. Here are a couple. What's the price comparison? That's one. The first one most people ask. What's the price comparison against the liquid equivalent per hectare? And the answer is it's slightly higher. I'm not going to give numbers on this screen, and that's because we have all sorts of people joining us today, right from distributors through to reps, through to end users, and so on and so forth. So your account manager will be able to handle that side of things. But on the wholesale price side of things, it's slightly higher than if you're applying a liquid program. But you are getting a cation exchange capacity benefit way, way, way more than the extra cost. So if you view it as a cation exchange capacity addition plus the wetting agent, it's actually fantastic value for money. And that potential greater longevity, which I cannot say is true at the moment, and we're investigating, but if that was true, then we can certainly tick that box of it being cost effective per square meter compared with the liquid. Another frequently asked question is, can it be used with liquids in a combined program? I mean, that's a fantastic idea. The answer is absolutely yes. Just abide by the maximum applications. There are maximum applications for SATUGRAN, as I've spoken about just recently. And there are maximum applications for liquids. So abide by the maximum applications for each. And yes, you can build a program where, and I would suggest what would come out of this would be an initial application of Granular to give you a background initial, hopefully longevity release, combined with top-up applications of liquids, or a number of Granular applications over the year, and then towards the tail end of your season, when it's getting a little bit shall I, shan't I, in terms of does it need an application, maybe you could just quickly nip out with a liquid at that point. So a combination of program, absolutely not a problem. Great idea. So there we go. That's SATUGRAN, a description and details of use. You can get a lot more detail from your account manager at Greenbest and from us in general and from the website. So let's finally just talk about supply and stock and where you can get it. So if you're an end user looking after a bowling green, and some of you who've logged in are, if you're an end user looking after a golf course and a greenkeep, and some of you have logged in are, and you're looking for SATUGRAN supply, then visit our Velvet web distributor list. It's on our Greenbest website. You look at the Velvet range and you can see a distributor list on there. And you can get supply of SATUGRAN through any of those distributors. If you'd like to become a Velvet range distributor, then that's great too. Contact our sales team and we can set you up as a Velvet range distributor. Perhaps you're a rep in a company and you're deciding one day you've been thinking about, I'd like to start up on my own. Well, you can become a Velvet range distributor. That's what we're here for. So contact us and we can set you up. And of course, finally, if you're currently a customer of ours already, that's great. Just find SATUGRAN on your portal account. As you all know, we have a portal login on our website where you can see your product prices, you can see availability, and you can see SATUGRAN and you can purchase SATUGRAN. So thank you very much for your attendance and your time today. I hope you found it interesting. You know how to get hold of us to find out more about SATUGRAN, and you will in due course get a list of the slides that will come through automatically, and you will get a recording of this webinar so that you can see it again. So thank you all very much for attending, and I hope to see you again in another webinar. Take care.